What's up guys, Carl here. Today I'm making this video to share a small piece of software that I created. It was for a demo fire and alarm security system, and I created it using PyQt6. Now PyQt6 ended up being the best tool to build it with. It was really easy, really convenient, and I just wanted to share it with you guys today because of how easy I had found using PyQt6. When I was developing my software, I didn't need anything too complex or fancy looking, just something that was quick and easy to get off the ground while still being customizable enough to make it just look and feel good when you were using the software. I'd used Java Swing in the past, I'd used C++'s WX widgets in the past, and those are all fine, but I wanted something a little quicker, something I didn't have to deal with the syntax as much or have to worry about it, and that's when I stumbled upon PyQt6. PyQt6 ended up being really easy and intuitive. All the documentation and the specifications was just what I needed to turn out a quick demo piece of software. So basically in this video, I just want to show people how easy it is to get their own graphical user interface or any piece of their own software off the ground for any of their future projects. Just to give a little background info about it, PyQt6 is an implementation of a C++ library known as Qt. Qt is also used for making GUIs in a similar manner that PyQt6 is used. However, instead of having to deal with all the complexities of C++, you only have to deal with Python syntax, which is very simple, very easy. Makes it a really convenient library to use. PyQt6 is made up of these different widgets that when put together can create a very powerful layout, customizable layout. You can customize each widget with CSS or HTML, which makes it really easy to style and make a good looking interface. The best way to show you PyQt6 is to just jump right into it. So I'm going to start off by showing you guys how to install PyQt6. So again, in order to start using PyQt6, we have to install the module for PyQt6. So we can do this by opening our command prompt if you're on Windows, and then you can just do, you should already have Python installed, and so then we can just do pip install, and then we can just type PyQt6. Now here, I already have PyQt6 installed, so it went very fast. But normally you just have to wait a couple seconds and it would install the wheels and all the dependencies for PyQt6. Shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. And then you're all ready to go to use PyQt6. So now we have PyQt6 all set up through the command prompt. We can open up Visual Studio and we can start working with PyQt6. So let's create a new Python file. For now, let's just call it test.py. Right, so to start off, we have to import sys, because that'll allow us to run any applications we create with PyQt6 on our system. And then we have to import the libraries that we're going to use from PyQt6. As you can see, I have PyQt5 and 6 installed. I've used both in the past. PyQt5 was more for Python 2.7 and before. There's not a lot of difference between PyQt6 and PyQt5. PyQt6 of course is for 3.0 and later Python. There's some fully qualified names. There's certain names that are different. They don't have underscores in PyQt6, but overall they're pretty much the same. So let's just go ahead from PyQt6. Let's import a couple different modules or widgets they're called. Q application, Q main window, let's see what else, let's do Q label, and let's do Q the box layout. I'm going to explain all these in a second, but these are the widgets that are going to be necessary to create an PyQt6 application. You might actually also need one more library. Let's import this as well. This is going to be some of the core attributes in PyQt6. It allows us to add more customizability to our widgets, align certain widgets, style them, stuff like that. So we're going to import Qt right here. And now we are set up with our libraries. From here, a lot of people create their PyQt6 applications differently. I like to create a class and then instantiate that class in the main function of the Python file. That way I can expand more on my GUI. I can have different classes that they can interface with each other and can switch between screens. I just find that easier to do. Some people just straight up write the code, whatever you find easier, but this is the way I find. So I'm gonna create a class main window. It's gonna inherit from Q main window, right? And then of course we're gonna have to call the constructor. And of course, let's call the super constructor as well. That way we can set up our main window as a Q main window. Self, and then init. And now our main window is set up as a widget of Q main window. From here, we can start actually building our PyQt6 application. So let's start off by defining a size for our PyQt6 application. We can do that by using set fixed size. Let's make it, just make it 1080 by 600, so pretty much the length of the screen, half the screen. You can also set the window title. So basically when the application comes up, we can set what it's gonna say on the top left. You can also set the logo as well. For now, let's just set the title. We'll name it test application. And then in order to actually add widgets to our main window, we have to base it on a layout. So the layout that I'm gonna choose, let's call it main layout. I'm gonna use a QV box layout. Now what this layout is gonna do is every widget you add, it's gonna add it almost like a list. It's gonna add it vertically from the top to the bottom. One widget you add is gonna be on top, next one's gonna be below that, below, below, below. So we basically have a vertical box layout. There's also various other different types of layouts. There's grid layouts, there's horizontal layouts, and so much more, but I'll cover that in a future video. So now that we have our layout set up, we can actually create our own widgets and add widgets to that. So let's create a label, right? Let's name it QLabel. Let's make it a hello world, simple, classic. And that's it. To add the label to the layout, all we have to do is type main layout dot, we have to use a self as well, dot add widget, and let's add label. Simple as that. And then in order to the main window to know that the main layout is the layout it is using, you have to create a widget simply called QWidget. I also have to import that up here, so let's do that real quick. QWidget. QWidget is literally just going to be the most basic feature you can have in PyQt6. It's just a widget. Every other widget pretty much inherits from this. So like the label widget inherits from a QWidget, except the QLabel can support text, icons, stuff like that. So we can set the layouts of the widget by set layouts self main layouts. And then again, in order for the main window to know that that's the widget it is using, we then have to set the central widget to be the widget we just created. So these last few lines are some of the most important. Here we are creating a widget to contain the layout that we just added all our elements to. We set the layout of that widget to the layout we created, and then we set the class of main window to know that the widget we created has all those elements in it. So from here, this is our entire PyQt6 application. It'll simply just say hello world, and that's it. And that's our application. So let's move on to actually running the application. So if name is equal to main, we we are going to create an application of Q application. I'm going to pass through it arguments of the system. We're going to instantiate our window. We're going to show that window. And then on exit, we're going to execute that app so that when you exit the app, it'll exit it safely. And this is the entire code to run your first PyQt6 application. These lines here are also very important. The Q application sets up our PyQt6 environment. This allows us to actually run any of the functions, any of the widgets, and it allows them to be shown and called upon when we create our GUI. And then this here window.show actually makes it so that the window class is actually shown when you run the application. Also include that PyQt6.qt widgets is what we're importing from on top here. And then now we're all ready to go and run our application. So when we hit run, it's a test application. We can see it's 180 by 600. The title is test application. It says hello world. And it's simple as that. We have now created our first PyQt6 application. Now we can add styling to these labels. We can center them. We can make them bigger font. We can color the font, stuff like that. So let me just show you a little quick demo of that. Let's do label.set alignments. We're gonna do qt.alignmentFlag.align center. This is gonna center our text in the middle of the virtual box layout. And then we can also set a style sheet. As you can see from the wording of this, it is literally, we can just implement a whole style sheet in here. In quotes, we can put whatever CSS we want. So let's start off with color. And let's make it red. And then let's do font size. And let's make it 40px. So it's really basic styling here, but that's all it takes to make your GUI that much better. Let's see, let's save it first and then run it again. And now we can see it is centered, aligned in the center, and it is red, and it is bigger font. And there's so much more you can do, because again, it's CSS. You can customize it however much you would like. You can customize buttons. There's Q widget buttons. There's all different kinds of forms. You can align things any way you want, different colors and layouts and styles. And that's sort of just an introduction to it. There's so much more you can create with PyQt6, and it's a very easy and intuitive library to get into. So this was just an introduction. I will be making some future videos that introduce more layouts and stylings and different colors you can add to Q widgets. That's all for today. I'm Carl. I'll see you guys in the next one.